AITA for refusing to change my wedding plans for my family, even though they say I'm being selfish. I, 28F, have been engaged to my fiancé, Sam, 30M, for about a year now. We've been together for 6 years, and despite some bumps along the way, we've always had a solid relationship. Planning our wedding has been a roller coaster, mostly because my family has been unusually involved and, honestly, difficult to please. I'll try to give as much context as possible. First, a bit about my family. My parents, Laura, 55F, and Greg, 58M, are very traditional. They have always placed a huge emphasis on appearances, social status, and following proper etiquette. I have 2 younger siblings, Mia, 25F, and Jake, 22M. Mia is very dramatic and loves stirring up conflict, while Jake tends to avoid confrontation but will occasionally snap in a way that surprises everyone. My extended family is very close-knit, and they all have very strong opinions about everything, so family events are always intense. Sam and I wanted something simple and meaningful for our wedding. We agreed early on that we didn't want anything extravagant. The wedding venue is a small vineyard about an hour from our hometown, with a capacity of 80 guests. We decided on a late afternoon ceremony followed by a casual dinner reception. We both wanted it to be personal with a relaxed vibe. Invitations have gone out, and most of our friends and family are coming. The problem started when we told my parents about our plans. They immediately had a list of complaints. According to them, the venue was too rustic, the guest list was too small, the menu was not fancy enough, and the timing was inappropriate for social calendars. They also insisted that we have an open bar and a bigger dance floor. We tried to explain that the wedding reflects who we are as a couple, but they insisted that I was making a mistake that my future grandchildren would curse me for. This naturally upset Sam and me. I tried compromising on a few minor details, adding a slightly longer cocktail hour and including a few more food options. But my parents weren't satisfied. They then suggested moving the wedding to a larger hotel ballroom in the city, saying it would look better in photos and allow more guests. They offered to pay for a significant portion if we did, but Sam and I declined because the location is not meaningful to us and the cost would interfere with our honeymoon plans. When we refused, the conflict escalated. My mom has since been sending me daily texts and emails with suggestions on what I should do, and sometimes what I must do. She even offered to contact our friends directly to convince them to push for a bigger wedding. My dad told Sam privately that he should talk some sense into me. My siblings have taken sides. Mia is accusing me of being a bridezilla and selfish for ruining the family's chance at a proper celebration, while Jake has been silent but has implied to others that I'm being unreasonable. A few weeks ago, my mom called and said she couldn't attend a wedding like this if I didn't change the venue. I asked her if she was serious, and she confirmed. She also threatened that if I went through with the wedding as planned, she would not attend, and she would actively tell extended family not to attend either. My dad backed her up, although he seemed more hesitant. Sam and I were upset but stayed firm. We love our family and wanted them there, but we also wanted our wedding to reflect us, not a checklist for social validation. When I informed my parents that we were proceeding as planned, the reaction was explosive. My mom accused me of being ungrateful and selfish. My dad said I was throwing away family legacy for Instagram aesthetics, and my siblings each took turns lecturing me. Mia told me I was ruining her chance to show off her social connections, which I honestly don't fully understand, but apparently was very important to her. Things came to a head last week. My parents sent me a long email outlining all the reasons why our wedding should be reconsidered. At the bottom, they included a postscript saying, "If you insist on going through with this, do not expect any support from us. Your father and I will not be attending." I responded politely, reaffirming our decision and saying I hope they would reconsider, but we are moving forward as planned. Since then, the extended family has been divided. Some are supporting me. Others have asked why I'm being so obstinate. Sam's family is incredibly supportive and thinks my family is overreacting. I felt like I'm walking on eggshells every day, and honestly, I'm exhausted from the constant pressure. I do love my family and want them there, but I feel like if I give in now, It will set a precedent that my life decisions are negotiable based on their approval. On the other hand, my parents have told multiple people that I'm being selfish, and I'm starting to get messages from relatives asking if I'm okay with cutting my parents out entirely. I haven't responded to them because I genuinely don't know how to explain it without sounding combative. Now my parents have made it clear, attend our wedding as we want it, or not at all. I feel caught between honoring my own choices and keeping family peace. I've already adjusted minor details, but nothing seems to matter to them. Sam says he wants to support me fully and that we shouldn't change our plans for anyone. I realize I might be seen as stubborn, but this is our wedding, not theirs. I want to create memories that reflect us, not a spectacle to appease social expectations. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to change my wedding plans, even though my family says I'm being selfish and ungrateful. Character count, 6624 if you want. I can also craft another version that's even more dramatic and viral ready, with extra twists, betrayals, and moral conflict. It would feel like a top Reddit post that people can't stop debating. Do you want me to do that? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her bridal party rules. I, 28F, have a complicated relationship with my sister, Emily, 32F, that has been mostly okay but occasionally tense. Emily has always been a bit of a control freak, especially when it comes to anything related to her life milestones. Growing up, she often expected everyone to follow her rules, and while I usually let little things slide, this time feels different. Emily got engaged about a year ago, and immediately the wedding planning began. At first, I was excited for her. She's been through some rough relationships, and I genuinely wanted her to be happy. However, as soon as she started talking about the bridal party, my excitement waned. She told me she wanted me to be her maid of honor, which is usually a huge honor, but then she started listing conditions. She said I had to lose weight for the dress because she wanted all the bridesmaids to look cohesive, even though the dress itself is not exactly revealing or tight. She also said I had to buy a $500 dress that was already off the rack and had to be tailored by a specific tailor she picked. On top of that, she demanded that I do all sorts of prep work, like helping with table decorations, DIY projects for centerpieces, and even designing the wedding invitations. All of this, she made clear, was mandatory, and she framed it as if refusing would hurt her feelings beyond measure. At first, I tried to negotiate a little. I explained that $500 is a lot for me right now, especially with my student loans and rent, and that I could help in ways that didn't involve spending extra money. Emily got upset and said that if I really loved her, money wouldn't matter. I was taken aback. I do love her, but I also have boundaries, and I feel like my finances shouldn't be an indicator of my love. Then came the dress fitting. She demanded I come to the city where she lives, which is 3 hours away, for fittings and practice runs for hair and makeup. I pointed out that traveling repeatedly is expensive and time-consuming, but she insisted, framing it as essential to her wedding vision. She even said if I don't attend every fitting, it would be hurtful and disrespectful. The breaking point came last month. She told me there was a strict no +1s rule for bridesmaids. I have a boyfriend, 30M, and I asked if he could come, even just for the reception. Emily said no. She said the guest list was final and that inviting a +1 would ruin her seating chart, and that everyone else's partners had already RSVP'd. I tried to reason with her, but she became passive-aggressive, saying that if I cared about her, I would sacrifice my boyfriend's attendance for her perfect wedding. I realized that every single requirement was framed as a test of my love or loyalty. Losing weight, spending money, attending every fitting, not bringing my boyfriend, it all came down to her measuring my dedication to her happiness. And it wasn't just her expectations. It was the tone, the guilt tripping, the insistence that any refusal meant I wasn't good enough. I decided I couldn't participate. I sent Emily a long message explaining my feelings, emphasizing that I love her and want her to have a beautiful day, but I cannot comply with all of her demands because they compromise my values, finances, and mental health. I also said that I would still attend the wedding as a guest, but I wouldn't be part of the bridal party. Her reaction was worse than I imagined. She called me selfish, saying that I've ruined her dream and that no one else would understand why I'm refusing. She accused me of letting my boyfriend come between us and of prioritizing myself over her big day. She sent several more messages, escalating in anger, and even called our parents to complain about me. Our parents are somewhat on her side. They think I should just suck it up for one day. My boyfriend is supportive, saying he agrees I shouldn't have to compromise so much just to be in someone else's wedding, especially under these conditions. A few friends have said that Emily's requests are unreasonable and that I made the right call. I feel awful for disappointing her. I know weddings are important, and I genuinely want her day to be beautiful. But I also feel trapped and resentful because the conditions she imposed make it impossible for me to participate without sacrificing a lot of my own well-being. Now, the tension between Emily and me is palpable. She sent passive-aggressive text about how everyone will notice my absence in the bridal photos and how she'll never forgive me. I've ignored the texts because I don't want to argue further, but our parents keep asking me to reconsider. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to be in my sister's bridal party because of the unreasonable rules she set, even though I'm still attending as a guest. I feel like I'm standing up for myself, but I also feel like I might be overreacting and hurting her on what is supposed to be a happy day. The story as written is currently 6,462 characters, falling within your requested range. If you want, I can also create a second story that pushes closer to 7,000 characters with slightly more drama, multiple layers of family conflict, and interpersonal tension, similar to the most viral AITA stories. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I, 29F, have always been the responsible sibling. I'm the one who organized family events, kept in touch with distant relatives, and tried to mediate when conflicts arose. My younger sister, Emma, 26F, has always been more free-spirited. She's bright, charming, and has an incredible sense of humor, but she's also a bit reckless. She's been through a few relationships that ended badly, mostly because she didn't think things through or ignored red flags. A little over a year ago, Emma started dating Alex, 27M. At first, he seemed fine, funny, polite, and attentive. He seemed to genuinely care about her. I tried to be supportive, even though I had a weird gut feeling from the beginning. Over time, however, I noticed some things that made me uneasy. Alex is extremely controlling. He constantly questions Emma's decisions, especially financial ones. She's always had a decent job, but Alex makes passive-aggressive comments whenever she buys anything non-essential. He also has a tendency to isolate her. He subtly discourages her from spending time with friends and even tries to minimize contact with me. At first, I brushed it off, thinking he just wanted to spend time with her, but it started escalating. A few months ago, during a family dinner at our parents' house, Alex made a comment about how he doesn't understand why family gets in the way of a relationship. He then proceeded to hint that my parents and I were overbearing and too opinionated for Emma. I tried to stay calm, but I felt this was crossing a line. My parents noticed too, but they brushed it off because Emma seemed happy at the time. The real breaking point came when Emma got engaged. She was ecstatic, of course, and started planning a wedding. I offered to help organize, thinking I could support her and keep the process smooth. That's when Alex's behavior really became controlling in front of me. He dictated the guest list, the seating arrangements, and even the menu. When I suggested including a couple of longtime family friends who weren't in his inner circle, he rolled his eyes and made a comment about how some people aren't really worth inviting. Emma laughed nervously, but I could see she was uncomfortable. As wedding planning progressed, Alex's controlling tendencies escalated. He demanded that Emma cut back on her social life and limit communication with anyone he deemed toxic. This included me. I'm not exaggerating. He actually told Emma she needed to spend less time with me because I was too negative. I was hurt, but I tried to respect boundaries. I didn't argue with Emma. I just limited interactions and tried to be supportive from a distance. The final straw came last month. Emma asked me to help with a bridal shower. I agreed, thinking it would be a chance to have some fun and maybe rebuild our connection. I spent weeks organizing it, booking the venue, ordering decorations, arranging catering. A few days before the shower, Alex called Emma and insisted that I not be involved because he didn't trust me around Emma without supervision. Emma, surprisingly, didn't defend me. She said she didn't want to argue and that it would be easier if I stepped back. I was devastated. After that, I decided I couldn't attend the wedding. I called Emma and explained my reasons, saying that I felt Alex was toxic and manipulative and that attending would feel like condoning his behavior. I told her I loved her and wanted the best for her, but I couldn't support the wedding while he treated her and our family this way. Emma reacted very angrily. She accused me of trying to sabotage her wedding, being dramatic, and refusing to respect her choices. She said I was overreacting and that Alex isn't controlling, just protective. Our parents are caught in the middle. They feel like I'm being harsh, but they also admit they've seen Alex's behavior. Some family members are taking sides. Some agree with me. Others think I'm being unreasonable and should just show up for the sake of family harmony. Since I refused to attend, the relationship between Emma and me has been tense. She hasn't spoken to me much except for angry texts, and I feel like our once-close bond is slipping away. I've tried to reach out gently, but she shuts me down, saying I don't understand her relationship and that I'm interfering with her happiness. I'm struggling with guilt. I know a wedding is a big deal, and I don't want to hurt my sister, but I also can't ignore what I see as serious red flags. I feel like attending the wedding would make me complicit in a situation where someone I love is being controlled and emotionally manipulated. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I think her fiancé is controlling and manipulative. I realize this is a long story, but I wanted to give as much context as possible. I'm trying to balance my love for my sister with my own boundaries and principles, but it feels like whatever I do, I'm going to be judged. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my husband. This is going to be long, so bear with me. I, 32F, have always been very close to my younger sister, Emma, 28F. Growing up, we shared everything, clothes, secrets, even friends sometimes. Our parents always said we were inseparable. That's why this situation is so upsetting. Emma has been dating her fiancé, Tom, 30M, for about 5 years. From the beginning, I liked him and thought he was a great influence on her. My husband, Mark, 34M, and I got married about 3 years ago, and we've been living a happy life. We have 2 kids, ages 2 and 4, and things have been mostly smooth in our marriage. Mark and I have always gotten along well with my family, including Emma and Tom. The problem started about a year ago when Emma began planning her wedding. She asked for my help initially, which I was more than happy to give. But as the planning progressed, things started to get weird. Emma began making offhand comments about Mark. Nothing major at first, just jokes she said she thought were harmless. For example, she would say things like, "Mark would probably ruin the seating chart if he tried to help," or, "I can't believe your husband still doesn't know how to fold napkins properly." I laughed it off, assuming it was typical sibling teasing. Then things escalated. At her bridal shower, she arranged a fun little activity where all the bridesmaids shared funny stories about the bride. When it was my turn, I mentioned a memory that involved Mark helping me organize a family camping trip. Emma immediately interrupted and said something like, "Yeah, but let's be honest, your husband is kind of useless in real situations." Everyone laughed. I smiled awkwardly, but it stung. After that, the comments became more frequent and sharper. She started calling Mark lazy or clueless in front of friends and family. She would make subtle digs during conversations, like asking me, "Does Mark even know how to dress for a formal event?" Or, "Do you really let him decide anything at home?" I started feeling anxious about going to events with her because I never knew what she might say. I tried talking to Emma privately several times, politely asking her to stop making negative comments about Mark. Each time she said I was being too sensitive or overreacting, and that it was just harmless fun. I explained that it hurt our relationship with her, and it made me uncomfortable to be around her when she treated my husband this way, but she dismissed my concerns. A few months ago, I received an invitation to her wedding. I was initially excited, but when I saw that Tom had invited several friends who I knew enjoyed making fun of Mark, I hesitated. I called Emma and told her I wanted to discuss something serious. I said that given how she has treated Mark publicly, I felt uncomfortable attending the wedding unless I knew she and her guests would be respectful. Emma exploded. She accused me of trying to control her wedding and said I was overreacting like always. She even implied that I was selfish for thinking about Mark instead of her big day. We argued, and I told her I would consider not attending if things didn't change. She accused me of being dramatic and said she would be heartbroken if I didn't come. I asked if we could at least agree on some boundaries so that Mark wouldn't be insulted at the wedding, and she refused. She said, if Mark can't handle a few jokes, maybe he shouldn't come. At this point, I had to make a decision. After discussing with Mark, we decided that we wouldn't attend. I called Emma to explain, and she cried, accused me of ruining her wedding, and said that I was choosing my husband over her. She said that everyone would understand, but part of me felt like I was abandoning her on her big day. Since then, my parents and some relatives have called me, saying that I am being unreasonable and that Emma is just joking. They said it's my duty as a sister to be there no matter what, and that I should get over it because it's her wedding, not a critique of Mark. Mark has been incredibly supportive, saying that he doesn't want to go into a situation where he's going to be humiliated. My kids are aware of the tension, and I don't want them exposed to it either. I still love Emma and want to maintain a relationship, but I feel like she crossed a line and doesn't respect me or my marriage. Some friends have said that I'm justified for protecting my family, but others think I'm being dramatic and that it's just a few harmless jokes. I honestly feel torn. I miss my sister, but I also don't want to subject my husband or myself to what I know will be humiliation. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she has treated my husband? AITA for refusing to let my stepbrother's wedding ruin my family's holiday tradition? I, 32F, have a bit of a long story, so bear with me. My family has a very strict tradition of spending the first weekend of December at our family cabin in the mountains. It's been a thing for decades, and everyone knows the date in advance. Growing up, it was always my favorite time of year. My parents are divorced, but have maintained a cordial relationship, so we've all managed to keep the tradition alive even after they split. Now, the conflict comes from my stepbrother, Jason, 28M. My dad remarried about 10 years ago, and Jason is my stepdad's son from a previous marriage. Jason and I were never super close, but we've always been polite and cordial at family events. This year, my stepbrother decided to get married. The wedding date? The first weekend of December, the exact weekend of our family cabin trip. Naturally, this caused some tension immediately. The problem is, Jason and his fiancée made the decision without consulting anyone else. They just booked the date and sent out invitations. I was shocked. This date is something my whole family has been planning for literally decades, and it's non-negotiable in our minds. When I confronted my dad about it, he said he didn't want to interfere and thought I should just adjust. My mom was equally upset because it's a rare chance for the family to all be together in one place. She even reminded me that the cabin is booked and ready, with food prepped, decorations bought, and people taking time off work to make it happen. I tried to talk to Jason directly. I explained how important this weekend is for the family, that it's basically a sacred tradition, and that I understood he wanted a winter wedding, but there were other weekends available. He brushed it off and said, "It's our wedding. We're adults. We can pick our own date." I tried to suggest a compromise, like a Friday evening ceremony with a small wedding followed by the main celebration later, or even a weekend later, but he didn't want to hear it. He even said something that really hurt. "We can't be responsible for your family's feelings. If they want to be mad, that's on them." My parents, trying to mediate, suggested that we split the weekend. Some people attend the wedding, some go to the cabin, but that felt like a terrible solution. Our tradition isn't about just showing up. It's the entire experience, from decorating the cabin to making homemade meals, watching the snowfall, playing board games late at night, and having everyone together. It's not something you can partially do. So I made the decision to stick to the tradition. I told my dad, my mom, and my siblings that we were going to the cabin as planned, and I politely declined to attend Jason's wedding. I also explained to Jason that I wasn't trying to be malicious, but this weekend is about decades of family memories, and it's impossible for me to choose a day over that. I offered to celebrate with him another weekend, take him out to dinner, or do a small gift exchange, but the main wedding day is a hard no for me. This decision has caused an enormous rift. Jason's fiancée has accused me of trying to sabotage their wedding and being selfish. My dad is disappointed that I won't compromise, and my stepdad is caught in the middle, feeling like he has to defend his son while also understanding why I can't change plans. My siblings mostly support me, but some have guilt-tripped me, saying, "You're ruining the family's chance to include him." I keep telling them that the family trip is including him, as he's welcome every year, but choosing his wedding over a decades-old tradition feels wrong. Now, a few more details that matter. Jason and I have never been especially close, as I mentioned. This is really more about my parents and my siblings' connection to the cabin tradition. Also, Jason's fiancée has a history of being controlling over planning things their way, which makes me worry that if I bend, it will just become another instance of everyone having to adjust to them rather than the other way around. I've started getting mixed messages on social media too. Some distant relatives have taken Jason's side, saying I'm being ridiculous and selfish, and that I should prioritize family harmony. Others are firmly on my side, saying that traditions that span decades shouldn't be ignored for someone's convenience. My friends mostly agree with me, too, but the tension within the family is real. There's a lot of silent resentment, passive-aggressive messages, and subtle hints that I'm choosing to fight rather than be flexible. At this point, my parents are very stressed because they want to avoid drama, and I feel like I've done all I can to offer compromises outside of the actual weekend. I made peace with missing the wedding, but I feel guilty because I know it's hurting Jason and my stepdad. Still, I can't see myself giving up our family tradition, which is about bonding, history, and stability for one event, no matter how important to someone else it is. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my stepbrother's wedding interfere with our long-standing family cabin weekend. Character count, 6,576 if you want. I can also draft a second version with even more interpersonal drama, rivalries, and subtle manipulations. These usually get even more engagement on Reddit. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she demanded I lie to our parents. I, 28F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emily, 25F, but our relationship has become increasingly strained over the past few months because of her upcoming wedding. I feel like I'm in a position where no matter what I do, someone is going to be upset, and I genuinely don't know if I'm being unreasonable. Emily and her fiancé, Mark, 27M, have been together for about 3 years. About 6 months ago, she announced she wanted a destination wedding in Italy. I thought it sounded amazing at first, but then reality set in. The wedding is expensive, and she expects everyone involved, especially me, to drop whatever we're doing and essentially be at her beck and call. I don't live far from my parents, and I have a decent job that requires consistent hours. So taking weeks off to travel for the wedding would be a huge financial and professional strain on me. What really complicated things, though, is that my parents are extremely traditional and believe weddings are supposed to be family affairs. They've been hinting that they expect me to help Emily financially, despite the fact that I live on my own and am just barely saving enough for a down payment on a house. Emily, however, insists that I help her not just financially, but also by lying to my parents about how much things are costing. She claims it's her big day, and she doesn't want mom and dad to stress over money. It started with small things. She asked me to cover a portion of the rehearsal dinner without telling our parents. I told her I wasn't comfortable hiding financial information from them, especially since my parents would naturally notice that the expense wasn't coming from them. Emily got upset and said I was ruining everything, and that she couldn't believe I'd choose the parents over her wedding. I tried to explain that I wasn't choosing anyone, I just didn't want to be dishonest, but she dismissed it. Then it escalated. Last week, she called me crying because Mark's family wants to invite a few extra people, which would raise the catering costs. She asked me to just cover it and don't tell anyone. I flat out said no, again citing that I wasn't comfortable lying to our parents or overextending myself financially. She responded by yelling at me over the phone, accusing me of being selfish and saying that I was the only person in the world who should have her back. I tried to stay calm, but she kept escalating, saying things like, "You've always been jealous of me, haven't you? That's why you're sabotaging my wedding." I ended up blocking her for a few days because I was overwhelmed and needed space. When I unblocked her, she sent me a long text that basically said if I didn't help her the way she wanted, she would tell our parents I wasn't supporting her at all. At this point, I realized that any involvement I have might come with strings attached, and I started questioning whether I even wanted to participate in the wedding at all. My parents have since reached out to me, confused and concerned because Emily has been telling them I'm being unhelpful and cold. I tried to explain the situation without bad-mouthing Emily, but they're upset and disappointed that I'm not contributing the way she wants. They don't understand that her requests would require me to lie to them and stretch beyond my means. I feel caught between three parties: Emily, who wants total loyalty and secrecy; Mark, who is largely uninvolved in the drama but defers to Emily; and my parents, who are upset at me for refusing to cover extra costs or conceal information. I don't want to ruin my sister's wedding, but I also can't bring myself to do things that make me uncomfortable or dishonest. I thought about attending only as a guest, contributing in small, reasonable ways like helping with decor or transportation, but Emily has made it clear that anything less than full financial and logistical support is unacceptable. While I tried to set boundaries, she accused me of being petty and unsupportive. I genuinely don't know what more I can do. I've spoken to a few friends about this, and some say I'm right to stand my ground, while others think I should suck it up for my sister's big day. My parents are disappointed, but still love me, though I feel tension whenever I see them. Emily has barely spoken to me since the last argument, and I'm worried that the rift will last beyond the wedding. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to help my sister financially and refusing to lie to my parents about her wedding expenses. I feel like I'm being pushed into an impossible corner where anything I do is framed as betrayal, but I also don't want to compromise my principles or go bankrupt for a single day. AITA for refusing to help my brother after he deliberately jeopardized my wedding plans. So I, 32F, have always been close to my younger brother, Mark, 28M, but over the years, he's developed a habit of being unpredictable, to put it lightly. Growing up, he was always the wild card of the family, fun, charismatic, but also prone to making impulsive decisions that sometimes caused major headaches for everyone else. I always tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, but my patience has limits. Fast forward to last year. I got engaged to my fiancée, Alex, 34M, and we immediately started planning a wedding for the following summer. I have to admit, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and this wedding was very important to me. I wanted everything to go smoothly, from the venue to the guest list to the small details like invitations and seating arrangements. Naturally, I wanted my brother to be part of the big day. He's my only sibling, and I have fond memories of growing up with him. Mark has a history of being unreliable when it comes to commitments. He has missed family events before, shown up late, or made things awkward by doing things he shouldn't. I had already decided that for this wedding, I wasn't going to risk any surprises from him, so I gave him clear instructions about his responsibilities. He was going to help with the rehearsal dinner and assist Alex in a few organizational tasks, mostly involving errands and contacting vendors. I made it very clear that he had to follow my schedule and instructions exactly. A few weeks before the wedding, Mark called me and said he had a better idea for helping. He wanted to take over the transportation arrangements for the guests, thinking he could get cheaper deals and make everything more exciting. I tried to explain that I had already booked everything and that changing plans at this stage could create chaos, but he insisted. He even argued that I was being controlling and that weddings should be fun and spontaneous. I reluctantly let him handle a few minor errands, but I drew a firm line at anything crucial like transportation or vendor payments. Fast forward to the week of the wedding. Mark decided to improve the rehearsal dinner by inviting several of his friends, none of whom I had approved or even met, and he also upgraded the guest transportation by booking a set of buses without confirming the number of attendees. On the day of the rehearsal dinner, things were a disaster. Some buses didn't show up, others were overbooked, and many of my guests, including elderly relatives, were left stranded. Mark thought it was funny and didn't take responsibility, saying it was just a small hiccup. Meanwhile, the rehearsal dinner ran late. Vendors were confused, and my parents were panicking. I was furious, but tried to stay calm in front of everyone. After the rehearsal dinner fiasco, I confronted Mark privately. I told him I couldn't allow him to handle anything else for the wedding, especially on the big day itself. He argued that I was being unreasonable and claimed he was only trying to help. I explained that helping doesn't include creating massive stress for the bride, ruining plans, or embarrassing her in front of her family and friends. I told him that he could still attend the wedding, but he would not have any responsibilities whatsoever, and if he caused problems, he would be asked to leave. Mark did not take this well. He accused me of being controlling, claimed that I didn't trust him, and said that my fiancée was manipulating me into cutting him out. He stopped talking to me for a few days and sent passive-aggressive messages blaming me for the rehearsal dinner issues, even though he was the one who made the decisions. My parents were caught in the middle and tried to mediate, but they were also frustrated with him because they saw the chaos firsthand. Wedding day arrived, and I did exactly what I said I would. Mark was present, but had no responsibilities. He did attempt to intervene with minor things, like trying to coordinate vendors or giving unsolicited advice to the photographer, but Alex and I calmly told him to step back each time. Honestly, it was tense, but everything went off without major problems because I had planned meticulously and limited Mark's involvement. After the wedding, Mark sent me a long text saying that I had ruined our relationship and that I had humiliated him in front of my guests. He said he was hurt that I didn't trust him and accused me of favoritism toward Alex. I didn't respond immediately because I needed time to cool down, but I eventually sent a firm message stating that I loved him as my brother. But he had repeatedly shown that he couldn't be trusted with important responsibilities and that any attempts to manipulate or disrupt my plans would not be tolerated. I also reminded him that this wasn't about favoritism. It was about accountability and respect. Now, a few weeks later, my parents are telling me I should apologize to Mark to mend the relationship. My friends are divided. Some say I was justified in setting boundaries, while others say I could have handled him more gently. Mark, meanwhile, is giving me the silent treatment and claiming that I've been overly controlling and that the wedding proved I don't trust him. I feel like I did the right thing by protecting my wedding and not letting my brother's impulsive behavior ruin one of the most important days of my life. At the same time, I do feel guilty because he is my only sibling and our relationship is strained now. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother take responsibility for wedding duties after he caused the rehearsal dinner disaster. Character count, 6,732. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of my aunt's behavior. So this is going to be long because the family dynamics are complicated, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I, 28F, have a large extended family, and for the most part, things are fairly normal. There's always the usual bickering and passive-aggressive comments at family gatherings, but nothing that's ever pushed me to my limits. That changed recently with my cousin's wedding. My cousin, let's call her Emily, 30F, is getting married next month. Emily and I have always been close. We grew up together, spent every summer at family reunions, and shared a lot of childhood memories. I was really excited when she got engaged and immediately offered to help in any way I could. I thought this would be a joyful time for both of us, and I want to be a part of it. Here's where things start getting complicated. My aunt, let's call her Karen, 55F, is Emily's mother and also my mom's sister. Karen has always been controlling and extremely judgmental, particularly about women in the family. She tends to micromanage events and has a history of making passive-aggressive comments about people's lives, whether it's their careers, partners, or even what they eat. Most of the time, I've been able to brush it off or avoid direct conflict, but the wedding planning process brought out the worst in her. A few months ago, Emily asked me to help her choose bridesmaid dresses. I was happy to do it, but Karen insisted on coming with me, even though Emily explicitly said she wanted this to be a cousin-only activity. At the store, Karen criticized every dress I suggested, saying they were too plain or too expensive or not flattering enough, even though she was only there as a helper, not a decision maker. Emily looked frustrated but tried to keep the peace, and I just left the store feeling annoyed. Things escalated when Emily asked me to help with the wedding decorations. Karen showed up uninvited one day while Emily and I were brainstorming, and the moment she walked in, she started dictating the color scheme and criticizing every idea we had. She said our ideas were childish and inappropriate for a classy wedding, even though Emily had already approved them. I tried to stand up for our choices politely, but Karen dismissed me completely, talking over me and insisting she knew better. Emily seemed torn, and I didn't want to ruin her day, so I quietly left after a few hours. The breaking point, however, came last week. Emily asked me to help assemble the wedding invitations. I agreed and spent the afternoon carefully writing and addressing envelopes. Karen, of course, had to insert herself. She criticized my handwriting, saying it looked messy and unprofessional, and even offered to redo the envelopes herself. When I politely declined, she made a comment about how some people are just naturally sloppy and unorganized, and smirked at Emily. Emily apologized to me for her mom, but I could tell she was feeling stressed and guilty. I ended up storming out, upset and frustrated, feeling completely unappreciated. After that incident, I told Emily that I was considering not attending the wedding. I didn't want to sit through the ceremony and reception listening to Karen's snide remarks or dealing with her passive-aggressive behavior, especially since she seems to have zero boundaries. Emily was devastated when I told her. She said she understood my feelings but begged me to reconsider, explaining that it would mean a lot to her to have me there. She promised that she would handle her mom and keep her in check during the day. I appreciated that, but I felt that even if Emily tried, Karen's behavior could easily ruin the event for me. I discussed it with my mom, who said I should go for Emily's sake. She said it would be selfish not to support my cousin on one of the most important days of her life. She also reminded me that Karen might escalate if I didn't go, which could create family drama. I see her point, but I also feel like I have a right to protect my mental health. In addition, I worry that attending the wedding would implicitly signal that I condone Karen's behavior, which I don't. I told Emily that I was sorry, but I couldn't attend. She cried and said that she understood my perspective but was hurt that I wouldn't be there. Karen, however, seems to think I'm intentionally trying to embarrass the family and has been texting me passive-aggressive messages about loyalty and family values. My other cousins are split. Some say I'm justified, others say I'm overreacting. I feel guilty because Emily is my cousin, and I genuinely love her. I want her to have the perfect wedding, but the thought of spending hours in the same room as Karen makes me anxious and stressed. I've even considered attending only the ceremony and skipping the reception, but I'm worried that could still trigger Karen or make things awkward for Emily. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of my aunt's behavior? I feel like I'm protecting my mental health, but I also don't want to hurt Emily or cause family drama. Character count, 6,283 if you want. I can also write an even longer, more intricate version around 7,000 characters with extra drama, side interactions, and escalating tension that feels like the most popular AITA posts on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 32F. We grew up in a small town, and while we were close as kids, things changed once we became teenagers. Emily has always been extremely controlling and competitive, and while I've tried to stay out of her way, it's always felt like she's had this sense of superiority over me. That said, I've always supported her in life milestones, from college to jobs, because I genuinely wanted her to be happy. 2 years ago, Emily met her now fiancé, Mark, 34M. At first, I thought he seemed decent, but over time, I noticed some red flags that made me uncomfortable. He is extremely manipulative, condescending toward anyone he deems less successful, and has a habit of turning family events into opportunities to criticize or belittle people quietly. He doesn't outright insult anyone, but his comments are always cutting enough to make people feel awkward. I initially kept these observations to myself because Emily seemed genuinely happy and insisted he was different around me. However, over the past year, I've witnessed enough incidents to feel that I can no longer stay silent. For example, at my birthday dinner last year, he made multiple jokes about how I'm always late to everything, and when I tried to brush it off, he subtly mocked my career path, implying it wasn't ambitious enough for someone in my family. It was embarrassing, and everyone at the table noticed, but Emily laughed along, saying I was being too sensitive. Fast forward to the wedding planning. Emily and Mark are very traditional and have extremely strong opinions on how things should be done. They've micromanaged every detail, often at the expense of our family's comfort or budget. My parents, who are funding part of the wedding, have expressed frustration at being dismissed when they offer input. I've tried to stay neutral and polite, but Mark in particular has made repeated passive-aggressive comments to me, my partner, 30M, and other relatives whenever we suggested minor changes or alternatives. Last week, things reached a breaking point. Emily sent me a message asking me to attend a pre-wedding family dinner at a restaurant she insisted was exclusive and only for family. I agreed, thinking it would be civil. During the dinner, Mark made a series of increasingly inappropriate comments. He joked about how my partner's job isn't high status enough to mingle with real professionals, and laughed when I asked him to stop. Then he criticized the way I've decorated my apartment, claiming it was cheap and uninspired, while saying Emily's taste is obviously superior. I left the dinner early because I felt humiliated and anxious. Afterward, I sent Emily a long message explaining why I felt uncomfortable and asking her to consider setting boundaries with Mark for the sake of family harmony. She replied that I was overreacting and that he didn't mean anything by it. She also implied that if I couldn't handle her fiancé, I might as well not come to the wedding. I was shocked. The expectation that I should ignore what I experienced and just be happy for them seemed unreasonable, especially because I felt targeted. I tried to talk to my parents about it, but they didn't want to get involved. They were worried that any confrontation would ruin Emily's happiness and the wedding itself. I understand their perspective, but I also feel like my feelings are valid and that attending the wedding under these circumstances would be emotionally unsafe for me. I've been dealing with anxiety ever since that dinner, and I worry that being around Mark for the entirety of the wedding will be overwhelming. After much thought, I told Emily I would not be attending the wedding. I explained that it's not because I don't love her or want to celebrate her, but because Mark's behavior has created a toxic environment for me. I offered to meet her one-on-one before or after the wedding to celebrate privately, but I cannot be in the presence of someone who makes me feel belittled. Emily has not spoken to me since. My parents are upset and say I should put family first and not let Mark ruin this. Some friends say I'm being harsh and should just grin and bear it for one day, but others agree that protecting my mental health is valid. I feel torn. I love my sister, but I can't bring myself to attend an event where I know I'll feel anxious and humiliated. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to go to my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé stay in my house after she made a huge scene during a family gathering? I, 32F, have always been the go-to sibling when it comes to hosting family events. I live in a mid-sized city in a decent apartment with my partner, Sam, 34M, and we've always been open to having family over, especially my younger brother, Mike, 29M. Mike and I have always been close, even though we're very different. I'm organized, detail-oriented, and a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to events, while he's more laid-back and tends to roll with whatever happens. Over the past few years, Mike started dating someone named Emma, 27F. I liked her at first. She seemed fun, social, and generally nice. But over time, I noticed she could be very demanding and controlling, especially around my brother, and that behavior started to create tension in the family. Fast forward to last weekend. I had planned a small family gathering to celebrate my mom's birthday. We invited my parents, my siblings, and their significant others. Mike and Emma had been together for about 2 years, and he mentioned that they had just gotten engaged. I was genuinely happy for him and wanted the celebration to be special. I spent hours planning, cooking, and decorating. The house looked great, the food was ready, and I was expecting a relaxed, happy evening. When everyone arrived, things were fine at first. People were laughing, chatting, and complimenting the food. Then Emma showed up. Immediately, I could tell she was in a mood. She started criticizing how I arranged the living room, complaining that the chairs weren't aligned correctly and that the lighting made the space feel off. I laughed it off at first, thinking she was just joking, but then she turned to my mom and said, I wouldn't host a party like this. It's very amateurish. My mom looked uncomfortable, and I felt my blood pressure spike. I tried to brush it off and keep the evening on track. We ate, we talked, and then we moved to the living room for cake. That's when things escalated. Emma grabbed the cake knife and announced that she wanted to cut the cake herself. I told her politely that I had already planned the order in which people would cut the cake, and that she could cut the next one. She scoffed, loudly complaining that nothing ever goes her way at these family gatherings. Then she started making sarcastic comments about how we obviously don't know how to host a proper celebration. I was mortified. People were staring, and I felt like I needed to defend my efforts. I calmly asked her to stop making negative comments, but she ignored me. At that point, I felt like the best course of action was to end the evening. I told everyone I appreciated them coming, but that I thought it might be best if Emma and Mike left since it seemed clear she was upset. Mike protested, saying she was his fiancée and that I was being unreasonable. Emma, of course, erupted. She started yelling about how I was trying to control everything and making her feel unwelcome in her future family's home. My parents tried to calm her down, but she refused to listen. She stormed out, and Mike followed her, leaving the rest of the family gathering in stunned silence. After they left, my mom pulled me aside and said she understood why I asked them to leave, but she was worried that this might create tension between Mike and me. Sam supported me, saying I shouldn't feel guilty for standing up for myself and maintaining boundaries in my own home. The next day, Mike called me. He was angry and accused me of embarrassing Emma in front of everyone. He said that since they were engaged, I should have treated her with more respect and let her handle herself. I tried to explain that her behavior, insulting my home, my cooking, and my family, was completely inappropriate and that I didn't feel obligated to tolerate it in my own house. He argued that she was stressed from wedding planning and that I should have been more understanding. I haven't spoken to him since that call, and I'm feeling really conflicted. On one hand, I feel like I did the right thing by defending my home and my family from someone who was being aggressively disrespectful. On the other hand, I feel guilty that I may have hurt my brother's feelings or caused a rift between us, especially since he's about to get married and I want to be close with him. Some of our extended family members have reached out and taken my side, saying that Emma's behavior was over the line and that I had every right to ask her to leave. Others are more cautious, suggesting I should have handled it differently and that this might permanently damage my relationship with Mike. I want to make it clear that I don't dislike Emma as a person, but her actions at the gathering were rude, condescending, and completely disrespectful to me and my home. I'm trying to figure out if I overreacted by asking them to leave, or if I was justified in protecting my own space and my family's comfort. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée stay in my house after she made a scene during a family gathering. AITA for refusing to accommodate my sister's bizarre request at my wedding and causing a huge family feud. So I, 29F, recently got married to my husband, Ben, 31M, after being together for almost 6 years. I had been dreaming of my wedding since I was a teenager. So when we started planning, I was really excited to make it our own and enjoy the day we wanted without too many compromises. I should clarify that my family is big and loud, and my sister, Claire, 32F, has always had a kind of everything revolves around me attitude. She's a talented artist and super opinionated, and while I love her, she has a history of taking things too far when it comes to attention and control. A few months before the wedding, Claire invited herself into our planning process. At first, it was harmless. She gave suggestions on flower arrangements, dress fittings, and even a menu. We politely listened, but Ben and I made it clear that the final decisions were ours. This mostly worked, until she came up with what she called the centerpiece of the wedding, which turned out to be her idea that we should have a live art performance during the reception. Here's where it gets complicated. Claire insisted that instead of a standard reception, she wanted to paint the emotions of the night in real time, on a giant canvas, while everyone danced and mingled. She told us that she would charge us a discounted rate, which we didn't mind. But the problem was that she expected us to dedicate an entire room and hire a professional lighting and sound technician just for her performance. On top of that, she wanted to have exclusive control of the music for that hour and demanded that everyone participate in her interactive art experience, including wearing specific colors that matched her palette. We tried to reason with her, telling her that while we appreciated her creativity, our vision for the wedding didn't include turning part of the reception into an art installation. She argued that this would make our wedding memorable and transformative, and accused us of being ungrateful for her generosity. At one point, she even said that if we didn't do this, she would not attend the wedding at all. I was shocked because, up until that point, she had been invited as a family member, not a performer. Ben and I decided that no, we would not change our plans to accommodate her, because the wedding was about us and not anyone else's artistic ambitions. I offered her a smaller role, maybe painting something in the background or contributing to a guest book, but she refused. She insisted that it had to be the main event. We stuck to our guns, and a week before the wedding, we sent her a polite but firm message outlining what we could and couldn't accommodate. Claire responded with a message that called me selfish, controlling, and said that I was ruining family traditions by not letting her showcase her art. She then told my parents that I had basically banned her from participating in any meaningful way, which they surprisingly supported. The wedding day arrived, and despite the tension, things went fairly smoothly. Claire showed up, but made a big scene during the toast, claiming she had been silenced, and that she would never forgive me for prioritizing Ben's taste over family harmony. She refused to speak to me for most of the evening and made a point of turning her back whenever anyone tried to engage with her. Some of our other relatives tried to intervene, telling her to lighten up, but she was clearly very hurt, or at least wanted everyone to think she was hurt. After the wedding, Claire started posting on social media subtle and not-so-subtle digs at me, saying things like it's sad when a sister's dreams are ignored, and art is love. Love is art, apparently not in some families. My parents called me asking if I had handled things differently, and honestly, I stuck by my decision, but the entire extended family seems divided now. Some people say I was wrong to not compromise and that weddings are about family harmony, while others say that I was well within my rights to plan the day exactly how Ben and I wanted. I feel a little guilty because our fight has caused tension between my parents and me and even affected other siblings. On the other hand, I also feel that Claire was being manipulative and that compromising in the way she demanded would have completely derailed the wedding. I'm also frustrated because I feel like people are pressuring me to prioritize her feelings over my own special day. Ben has been really supportive, saying that no one should be able to guilt-trip me into making their wedding about them. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister take over part of my wedding and for sticking to the vision that Ben and I wanted? Or was I right to draw the line, even if it caused a huge family rift? AITA for confronting my brother about how he treats my kid during family gatherings? So, a little background. I, 34F, have a 6-year-old daughter, Emma, and my younger brother, Josh, 30M, has always been a bit of a free spirit. He's funny, charming, and everyone loves him, but he's also impulsive, brash, and sometimes just downright inconsiderate. For context, I've always been the responsible sibling, and Josh has been more of the wild card, which has caused tension between us since we were kids. Our parents, who are in their mid-60s, are very laid back and rarely intervene when conflicts arise between us. Emma is a really sensitive kid. She's incredibly bright and observant, but also extremely empathetic, which means she picks up on moods, jokes, and snide remarks very quickly. We've always tried to protect her from negative or hurtful interactions, and it's worked well so far. Here's the issue. Over the past year, Josh has been making more frequent jokes about Emma during family gatherings. At first, they were harmless little jabs about her being bossy or overly dramatic, and I brushed them off, thinking it was just brotherly teasing. But lately, the jokes have gotten more pointed. Last Thanksgiving, he told Emma she was too sensitive to play real games because she didn't want to wrestle with him and his friends. He laughed it off, but I could see how hurt she was. Emma told me later that night she didn't want to go to family gatherings anymore because Josh always makes fun of her. I tried talking to Josh privately after that, hoping it would be a gentle conversation. I said something like, "Hey, Emma's sensitive, and I know you're joking, but she really takes these things to heart. Can we tone it down?" He laughed and said, "Come on, she's just a kid. She'll get over it. You're overreacting." I didn't push further because I didn't want to start a fight in front of our parents, and honestly, I wanted to handle it without drama. Fast forward to this past weekend. It was my dad's birthday, so we all gathered at my parents' house. Josh arrived, and within 10 minutes, he started teasing Emma again. This time, he told her she couldn't even keep up with a 6-year-old obstacle course, and that she was fragile like a china doll. Emma immediately got quiet, crossed her arms, and retreated to the corner of the room. My parents didn't say anything, probably assuming it was normal teasing. I lost it. I told Josh to come outside with me. And in the driveway, I said more firmly than before that his behavior was unacceptable and that if he didn't stop putting Emma down, he wasn't welcome at family gatherings while she was there. He laughed again and said I was being ridiculous, that kids need to toughen up, and that I was coddling her. I told him that what he called toughening up was bullying, and that Emma was emotionally scarred enough from past experiences without him adding to it. He got angry, raised his voice, and accused me of trying to control him and ruin the fun. Our argument escalated, and eventually, he left in a huff. My parents were embarrassed, but didn't take sides publicly. Some of my cousins whispered to me that I was too harsh, and that Josh was just joking, but I felt like no one was considering how Emma felt. After he left, Emma cried in my arms and said she felt safe again because I stood up for her. That made me feel justified, but now other family members are upset. They're saying I overreacted and that I ruined the party by confronting him. Josh hasn't spoken to me since, and some relatives are hinting that maybe I was being controlling and overprotective. I'm conflicted because I do see where people are coming from. He's my brother, we're supposed to tease each other, and maybe I could have handled it more delicately. But I also see my kid's face light up when she felt defended and heard, and I can't ignore that. I've tried reaching out to Josh since then to explain that my priority is Emma's emotional well-being, but he won't answer my calls or texts. My parents are frustrated, saying I made a mountain out of a molehill, but I can't help but feel like I was protecting my child from repeated emotional harm. AITA for confronting my brother and telling him he can't belittle my child at family gatherings. AITA for refusing to let my sister plan my wedding after she offended my fiancé's family. My fiancé, Ben, and I have been together for 6 years, and after a lot of back and forth about timing, we finally decided to get married next year. The planning started out simple enough. We agreed on a small wedding, just close family and friends, something intimate. But as soon as my sister, Rachel, found out, she made it very clear that she wanted to help. Rachel has always had a strong personality and a tendency to take over situations she's involved in. I tried to set boundaries early on, saying we appreciated her help, but we had a specific vision for the wedding. Rachel nodded and said she understood, but I should have known better. The first major problem arose with the guest list. Ben's family is fairly large, and they're from out of state. I mentioned that we were aiming for around 70 guests, but Rachel kept suggesting we invite just a few more of her friends, neighbors, and distant cousins. Ben and I explained repeatedly that the wedding was about us and our families, not her social circle, but she insisted she knew better. Eventually, I told her firmly that the guest list was final, and she got visibly upset but didn't argue further, at least in front of us. Then came the theme and decor. Rachel has very bold tastes and is obsessed with color coordination and Pinterest boards. She started sending me links for an extravagant garden fantasy theme, complete with a massive floral arch, fairy lights, and a live harpist. I thanked her for the suggestions, but told her I preferred something simple, elegant, and low-key. She sighed and said she thought we were settling, but didn't push further immediately. The real conflict began when Rachel met Ben's parents. They flew in last month for a weekend to meet us and discuss wedding arrangements. I was excited, but nervous because Ben's mother, Linda, can be critical and particular about family traditions. Rachel, however, acted like she knew everything about wedding etiquette and immediately started pointing out how Ben's family was doing it all wrong. For example, Ben's mother mentioned that she preferred a traditional seating arrangement at the ceremony. Rachel loudly scoffed and said, "Oh no, that's outdated. Let's just do a free-for-all seating chart. Everyone loves spontaneity." Ben's parents looked shocked but tried to politely smile. Rachel then made comments about the catering, suggesting substitutions and criticizing their regional dishes as boring and too heavy. I pulled Rachel aside and asked her to stop commenting. She snapped, saying that she was just trying to make sure our wedding was perfect and that I was being rude to her for not letting her use her experience. I reminded her again that Ben and I were making the decisions, and she needed to respect that. She reluctantly agreed, but the tension was palpable. 2 weeks later, Rachel called me to discuss the invitations. She had taken it upon herself to design them without asking. When I told her we had already chosen a design, she became defensive, saying that she had spent hours on something far better, and accused me of being ungrateful for not considering her work. I finally had to put my foot down and tell her that if she wanted to contribute, it would be in ways we approved, or not at all. That's when she stopped talking to me for 3 days. The breaking point came last weekend during a brunch with my parents, Ben's parents, and Rachel. I had been feeling anxious about the seating plan and suggested we go over it. Rachel immediately started questioning why Ben's uncle, who is divorced, couldn't sit next to his ex-wife. She loudly complained that the plan looked ridiculous and that I should let her fix everything. I lost my temper and told her that she was not helping, that she was insulting my family and Ben's, and that I would no longer allow her to plan any part of the wedding. Rachel stood up, slammed her hands on the table, and declared that she was done with this family nonsense, and stormed out. Ben's parents were sympathetic to me, but confused, and my own parents were mortified. Rachel has since been texting me passive-aggressive messages about how I'm destroying the family and excluding her unfairly. My fiancé says he's proud of me for setting boundaries, but my parents think I was too harsh and that I should let Rachel help to avoid conflict. Rachel keeps posting on social media vague statuses about family betrayal, and I've had mutual friends reach out asking if I'm overreacting. I understand wanting family to be involved, and I know Rachel thinks she's helping, but it's gotten to the point where she's undermining our decisions, embarrassing both of our families, and creating stress. Ben and I want our wedding to reflect us, not Rachel's vision. So, Reddit, AITA, for refusing to let my sister plan or even have major input in my wedding after she repeatedly disrespected our wishes and offended Ben's family. Character count, 6,454. AITA for refusing to lend my sister money after she sabotaged my wedding. I, 28F, have been engaged to my fiancé, Mark, 30M, for about 2 years. Our wedding was planned for last summer, and I spent nearly 2 years carefully organizing everything, from the venue to the catering, flowers, and the dress. I have a large extended family, and I consider myself close to most of them, except for my younger sister, Emily, 25F. Emily and I have always had a complicated relationship. We were close when we were kids, but as we grew older, her jealousy and need to compete with me became more apparent. I usually tried to ignore it, but it has been a recurring source of tension. A few months before the wedding, I had a falling out with Emily over something that now seems trivial, but at the time was a big deal to her. She had been dating a guy I didn't like, and I made a comment at a family dinner that he seemed shady. She was furious and stopped speaking to me for a month. Eventually, we reconciled, and she agreed to be a bridesmaid. I thought that would be the end of it. A few weeks before the wedding, Emily asked to borrow money. She claimed she was in a tight spot and needed about $1,500 to cover rent and bills until her next paycheck. I've always been somewhat generous with my family, but this time I said no. I explained that I was saving for the wedding and couldn't afford to lend her that much. She was visibly upset and accused me of being selfish. I felt guilty but stood firm. The week before the wedding, Emily started acting strangely. She was distant, didn't help with any wedding prep, and seemed annoyed whenever anyone mentioned the big day. On the day of the rehearsal dinner, she got into an argument with another bridesmaid over seating arrangements and stormed out. I assumed she was just stressed, but I started noticing little things throughout the week. Misplaced wedding favors, a bouquet I'd set aside went missing, and someone had tampered with the welcome bags for guests. At first, I thought it was accidental, but then Mark noticed that the ribbons on the centerpieces were tied incorrectly, in a way only someone who knew my exact instructions would do. On the wedding day, everything seemed fine at first. The ceremony went smoothly, and everyone was in good spirits. But during the reception, chaos started. The music I had painstakingly curated was swapped for a playlist of Emily's choosing. The caterer reported that someone had secretly altered the order of courses, and the cake was slightly damaged before cutting. I was heartbroken, and Mark was furious. After some investigation, we discovered that Emily had been behind most of it. She admitted it to my maid of honor, claiming she did it because she was angry at me for refusing to lend her money and because she felt ignored in the planning process. I confronted her, and she didn't deny it. She said she only wanted to teach me a lesson and that it wasn't a big deal, but I was devastated. My perfect wedding had been ruined in small but significant ways, and I realized that Emily's jealousy had been simmering far longer than I understood. Since then, Emily has been asking me for money again. She claims that she has learned her lesson and promises she won't cause any more trouble. My parents and some of my extended family have told me I should forgive her and help her because she's my sister and she's young. They say everyone makes mistakes, and this is a chance to mend our relationship. I, however, am hesitant. I feel like lending her money after what she did would be rewarding manipulative behavior. I've also been thinking about the message it sends, that she can sabotage someone's major life event and still get help afterward. I don't want to cut her off entirely, but I also don't want to put myself in a position where she can take advantage of me again. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to lend my sister money after she sabotaged my wedding. Character count, 6,479 if you want. I can also create an even longer version closer to 7,000 characters with more intricate family dynamics, more drama at the wedding, and extra fallout afterward. It would feel even more like the viral AITA posts people obsess over. Do you want me to do that? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over a seating arrangement? This is going to sound ridiculous, but here goes. My sister, Emma, got married last month, and it has caused a massive family feud that I never expected. I honestly thought I was being reasonable, but apparently not. I need an outside perspective to figure out if I'm really the asshole here. A bit of background. I'm 29, and Emma is 31. Our parents are divorced, but both were involved in planning the wedding. Emma and I have always had a somewhat competitive relationship, but we've also been close, at least on the surface. When she got engaged, I was genuinely happy for her. I wasn't the maid of honor, my best friend was, but I was in the bridal party, so I was involved. The issue started with the seating arrangement at the reception. Emma's fiancé, Tom, and I were trying to work out some of the table logistics because we were both assigned as points of contact for the planner for our respective sides of the family. Tom is generally easygoing, but Emma is very particular. She had a huge spreadsheet of who should sit where and who could not sit near whom. Naturally, my parents, who are divorced, were at opposite ends of the spectrum. My dad's side and my mom's side had long-standing tension that Emma wanted to avoid. The problem arose with my younger brother, Jake, who is 24. Jake has some social issues, which Emma is aware of, but he also has a habit of drinking too much and making inappropriate jokes. Emma had assigned him to a table with her fiancé's side of the family, thinking it would be fine because those guests are fun-loving and could handle him. I knew from past family events that this would not end well. Last Christmas, Jake had gotten drunk, insulted one of Tom's cousins, and caused a scene. I brought this up to Emma, politely suggesting that maybe Jake should be moved to a table with some of my family members who know him better and could manage him. Emma freaked out. She said I was overreacting and that I was trying to control her wedding. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to control anything. I just wanted to prevent an embarrassing situation that could ruin her big day. She insisted that she had it all under control, so I backed off. Fast forward to the wedding day. Before the reception started, Jake was obviously drinking more than he should have, and by the time people sat down, he was tipsy. He immediately started telling inappropriate jokes to Tom's cousins and ended up insulting the best man, who is also Tom's lifelong friend. The tension escalated quickly, and within 15 minutes, Jake was asked to leave the reception by Tom's brother, who is a very intimidating guy. Jake refused, things got louder, and security had to step in. Emma was furious. She stormed off and spent the rest of the night crying, and my parents were trying to mediate, but it was chaos. Guests were taking sides, and some people were visibly uncomfortable. Tom's family later told me that they were shocked that anyone would allow such behavior at a wedding. Emma, meanwhile, has been giving me the silent treatment for weeks, and my mom has called me the reason her daughter's wedding was ruined. Here's where I think I might be the asshole, according to some family members. After everything settled, I sent Emma a text explaining that I tried to warn her and that I wasn't trying to ruin her wedding. I just didn't want someone to cause a scene. She replied that I needed to stay out of her life and that I was selfish and controlling. My dad has said I should apologize even though he agrees I was right about Jake. My friends think I was entirely justified because it was a foreseeable problem. To be fair, I did have a bit of a smug moment afterward. When Jake got kicked out, I mentioned quietly to a couple of people I did warn her about this, which probably made Emma even angrier. But even without that, she was still upset with me. I've stayed out of the way since then, but the cold shoulder is brutal. I honestly don't think I was wrong. I was trying to prevent an embarrassing situation and protect both families. But my sister and some relatives think I cross a line just by suggesting a seating change. I can see that maybe my timing or delivery could have been better, but the outcome seems to validate my concerns. So Reddit, AITA for trying to prevent a disaster at my sister's wedding by suggesting a seating change, even though she didn't take my advice and it all went wrong? AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of how he treated my sister? I, 28F, come from a fairly tight-knit family, though we have our usual squabbles. My younger brother, Ben, 25M, has always been a bit of a golden child in my parents' eyes. He's charming, ambitious, and always seems to get away with things that would get the rest of us grounded. My younger sister, Emma, 22F, has had a more difficult time. She's smart and independent, but she's also very sensitive and struggles with anxiety. Here's the situation. Ben has been dating his fiancée, Rachel, 27F, for about 3 years. Rachel is lovely on the surface. She's outgoing, beautiful, and very career-driven, but she has a history of being controlling and manipulative, particularly with Ben. Emma has had some unfortunate encounters with Rachel over the past couple of years. Rachel is the type of person who tends to push her opinions and dismiss others' feelings if they don't align with hers. For example, last year during a small family gathering, Emma mentioned that she was thinking of applying to a graduate program out of state. Rachel immediately started questioning whether Emma could handle the stress, saying things like, "Are you really ready for that? Maybe you should consider staying closer to home." Emma felt humiliated and retreated from the conversation, which upset me. It's not just small comments either. Rachel has a history of belittling Emma in front of family and mutual friends. She makes jokes about Emma's anxiety, her weight, her choice of career, and even the fact that Emma has been single for a while. Ben has always laughed these off or made excuses, saying Rachel doesn't mean anything by it, but it's gotten to the point where Emma now avoids family gatherings she knows Rachel will attend. Fast forward to the wedding planning. Ben and Rachel invited the entire family, of course. When they sent the invites, they also included a note that they expect everyone to participate in a fun pre-wedding game during the rehearsal dinner. The game, as it turns out, was organized by Rachel, and the main activity involved sharing stories about embarrassing moments of family members. Emma approached me privately, clearly stressed. She said she didn't want to attend because she felt like she would be the main target, especially after Rachel had already made a few veiled threats during a call about not embarrassing her fiancé in front of guests. I was conflicted because I knew Ben wanted all of us there, but I also knew that attending would almost certainly mean Emma being humiliated again. I told her that I would stand by her and not go if she didn't want to, but she insisted that it would be worse if I attended without her, since Rachel might escalate the situation even further. I reached out to Ben privately and told him about Emma's feelings and how I was leaning toward not attending if the situation didn't change. He immediately got defensive and accused me of ganging up on Rachel. He said, "It's my wedding. If you can't be mature enough to put aside petty grudges for one day, then maybe you shouldn't come at all." I tried explaining that it wasn't a grudge. Emma had legitimate concerns, and she shouldn't be subjected to emotional manipulation. Ben's response was that Emma was overreacting and that I was enabling her. Things escalated when I spoke to my parents. I told them I wasn't planning to attend unless Rachel agreed to tone down her games and treat Emma respectfully. My mom told me I was being dramatic and should just go along for the sake of family unity. My dad, however, privately admitted he'd noticed Rachel being harsh to Emma but didn't want to confront Ben. He basically left the decision up to me. I eventually sent Ben a message saying that I would not be attending the wedding if Rachel did not change her behavior toward Emma, and I emphasized that it was about protecting my sister, not disrespecting him. Ben blew up, calling me selfish and saying I was ruining family relationships. He even implied that if I didn't attend, I was showing that I didn't love my brother enough to celebrate his big day. Since then, my extended family has been divided. Some relatives understand my position and think Rachel's behavior toward Emma is unacceptable. Others say I'm overreacting and that weddings are about the couple, not the drama. Emma is grateful I'm supporting her, but is incredibly stressed that I'm now also in conflict with Ben. Here's where I'm unsure. I want to stand by Emma, but it's also true that not attending my brother's wedding is a big deal for him. I don't want to be labeled the villain in this situation, but I also don't feel I can morally justify attending if it means letting Rachel humiliate my sister. I've offered alternatives, like attending the ceremony but skipping the rehearsal dinner or having a private celebration with Ben later, but Ben has refused. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding to protect my sister from being mistreated. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.